Captain Melissa Kane was never one for quiet mornings. Even on her days off, she found stillness unbearable. At 6:12 that Tuesday, she was pounding along the gravel shoulder of a rural road outside Boise, her breath clouding in the brisk spring air, her running shoes crunching rhythmically. Her mind was in that steady runner's trance, focused on the feel of her muscles, the burn in her lungs, the sound of sparrows chattering in the cottonwoods. Then the secure phone in her waist pouch began to buzz. The vibration was so sharp and insistent that she nearly missed a step. She slowed, unzipping the pouch, and pulled out the matte black device, a hardened satellite unit only issued for critical alerts. The screen lit with a priority code she hadn't seen in over a year. Flash, immediate response required. Her training told her to answer with detachment. Her gut told her this was bad. "Kane," she said, her voice clipped. A voice she recognized, Major Darren Wilkes from Air Guard Operations, came through low and urgent. "Melissa, I need you on base now. We've got a structural emergency on the Snake River Dam. Truck bomb on the spillway." SEAL Team 9 was already embedded for intel. They're on scene. They've defused some charges, but he paused, as though the next words were too heavy to push out. They might not get to the rest in time. Melissa slowed to a walk, her pulse suddenly pounding for a different reason. She looked toward the distant ridge line. She'd flown over that dam more times than she could count in training runs. It was old, massive, and vital. The reservoir behind it held back enough water to turn the valley below into a raging inland sea. How long until structural failure? She asked. They're giving 30 minutes max if the remaining charges go. Downstream communities have, well, you know what's at stake. Her mind painted the map automatically. The river twisting south, cutting through farmland, grazing towns, highway bridges. Thousands of lives. Tens of thousands if the surge hit during morning commutes. Why not just order evacuation? She asked, already knowing the answer. Already in progress, but we won't get everyone out in time. And the SEALs, he broke off again. They're calling it. Maybe already too late. Her jaw clenched. Maybe isn't definitely. That's why I'm calling you. Melissa pivoted mid-step and started jogging back toward her truck, parked near the trailhead. She didn't waste time asking who else was on deck. If Wilkes was calling her directly, she was the option, maybe the only one. As she ran, Wilkes gave her the quick breakdown. The truck bomb had detonated against the western spillway at 5:38, sending a shockwave that fractured concrete and ripped away service walkways. SEAL Team 9 had been shadowing a smuggling operation in the region, stumbled onto the plot, and engaged seconds after the initial blast. They'd found additional shaped charges wired to structural joints along the dam face, enough to compromise the whole structure if triggered. The timers were crude, but the wiring was dense and fastened deep in stress points. Dismantling them all before detonation? Almost impossible. Melissa reached her truck, yanked open the door, and tossed the phone on the passenger seat. Her running. Shoes sprayed gravel as she reversed and tore down the road toward Gowan Field. She could feel the urgency in her shoulders, in the way she gripped the steering wheel too tightly. Almost impossible. She hated that phrase. She'd made a career out of doing the things people thought couldn't be done. That was why she was in an A-10 instead of a desk job. Why she was still on active readiness, while her academy friends had long since retired to training posts. She punched the phone speaker as Wilkes patched her into the live command channel. The background noise was pure chaos. Overlapping voices, clattering equipment, the occasional bark of orders. Then she heard a gravelly male voice, cutting through the din. "Command, this is Holt. We've got partial detonation. Secondary charges confirmed. Timers running. Spillways compromised. If those go, The reservoir pressure will do the rest. Melissa recognized the name. Commander Holt had the reputation of a man who didn't overstate danger. If he sounded grim, the situation was already bad. An engineer's voice jumped in. If we use heavy explosives or high-caliber rounds, we risk shattering the spillway entirely. A third voice, clipped, military calm. Options? That was when Holt said it. Quiet, but audible over the open channel. Tell your pilot. It's already too late. Elisa's fingers tightened on the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. She could almost hear the defeat under his professionalism. That defeat wasn't for her. She didn't take too late as a closed door, only as a sign she'd have to kick it in harder. Command, she broke in, her voice cold steel. This is Kane. Give me the coordinates, give me the targets, and get out of my way. The silence after her interruption was short, but noticeable. Then Wilkes came back, sounding almost relieved. Copy that, Kane? You'll have your brief. On arrival, estimated target acquisition window will be. A pause as someone murmured in the background. 12 minutes from wheels up. She pressed harder on the accelerator, weaving through light traffic as Boise came into view. Plenty of time, she said. It wasn't, and they all knew it. But confidence mattered now, for the people listening and for her own mind. The highway curved, revealing the distant silhouette of Gowan Field. The sun was climbing fast, glinting off hangar roofs. Her stomach tightened in anticipation. She thought of the dam again, of cold, churning water pouring through the valley, smashing bridges, swallowing homes. Faces flashed in her mind. Farmers she'd met during training flights. The kid who sold lemonade near the fishing access road. The elementary school that would be directly in the path. She forced the images aside. They were fuel, but they couldn't control her hands. By the time she skidded to a halt in her reserved spot outside, the operations building, crew members were already moving toward her, headsets pressed to their ears, clipboards in hand. Someone thrust a flight suit toward her. Another passed a packet of quick reference target diagrams. Command wants you in the air in 8, a sergeant said. Melissa peeled off her running shirt and pulled on the flight suit, sealing the zipper with one sharp motion. The fabric was still cool against her skin. She grabbed her helmet, tucking it under her arm. As she strode toward the hangar, she glanced at the nearest diagram. The dam's profile was marked with red X's detonator locations, each in a spot designed to maximize cascading structural failure. Whoever planted them had known exactly what they were doing. Her A-10, her hog, waited on the tarmac. Squat and ugly to the untrained eye, beautiful to anyone who understood what she could make it do. The GIU-8 cannon in the nose gleamed dully under the morning light, its 7 barrels capable of spitting out destruction in tight, precise bursts. Melissa ran a hand along the fuselage as she passed. The metal was cool, familiar, reliable. Not like the situation she was flying into. She climbed the ladder into the cockpit. The world narrowed to switches, dials, and the soft whir of systems coming alive. Valkyrie 1, Wilkes said over the comb. You are go for Mission Snake. Watch, do you copy? She slid her helmet on, the chin strap clicking into place. Her voice was calm when she answered. Copy. Command. Valkyrie 1 is wheels up in 5. And just like that, the quiet morning was gone. The clock was running. And somewhere upriver, death was already moving with the current. The cockpit was still warming up when the live feed from the dam crackled into Melissa's helmet. Commander Holt's voice came first, low, gravelly, calm in that way only seasoned operators could be in a crisis. Command, this is Holt. We've got partial detonation. Secondary charges confirmed. Timers are active. Spillway integrity is compromised. A background roar, water, wind, or maybe both, swallowed the next few seconds. When the feed cleared, an engineer's voice cut in, fast and urgent. If those go, the structure's going to fail completely. Reservoir will dump everything. Downstream. Melissa adjusted the oxygen mask at her chin, scanning the instrument panel. The A-10's displays were lighting up in sequence. Fuel levels, weapon status, targeting systems. All normal. All ready. Holt was still speaking. We've disarmed what we can, but the rest? Too deep, too wired in. We'd need ours. Which you don't have, Melissa muttered under her breath. The engineer confirmed it aloud. 30 minutes if the timers are sensed. Less if they're staggered. And the stress fractures from the initial blast are growing. She could hear Holt inhale before speaking again. Command? Tell your pilot, it's already too late. That phrase hung in her helmet like a bad echo. It wasn't even defeatist. Just a statement of cold math. A man like Holt didn't waste words, and he didn't hedge bets. If he said too late, it was because the numbers pointed to disaster. Melissa pressed her mic. Valkyrie 1 copies, she said, her tone flat, unshaken. Send coordinates for all confirmed detonators. Prioritize by timer length. There was a pause, just long enough for her to imagine Holt raising an eyebrow before the feed changed. She could hear paper shuffling, keyboards clacking. A new voice came in, young and brisk, clearly an air controller. Valkyrie 1 sending. Target package now. Be advised, canyon approach is narrow. Crosswinds at gusts of 15 knots. Visibility near zero in some quadrants due to residual smoke. Recommend abort if target lock is unreliable. Melissa smirked without humor. Noted. Not happening. In the background, Holt barked something to his men, his words half lost under the rumble of water. She caught fragments. Evac team, west side. Keep moving. Then his voice came back strong. Kane, we've got civilians still in. Low ground. Engineers are buying us time, but not much. Do what you can. Just don't drop that whole wall on us. She thought about that, the fine line between precision and catastrophe. The A-10's GAU-8 could shred steel and concrete in seconds. One wrong angle, and she'd be the one who finished what the bombers started. The targeting map appeared. On her display, a skeletal outline of the dam with red blinking dots marking detonator sites. They weren't clustered neatly. They were tucked into stress points like a surgeon's knife wounds, each one ready to bleed the structure dry. She studied the layout as she taxied toward the runway. Whoever planted these new dam engineering, and they'd positioned them for maximum chain reaction. Remove a few, maybe the wall held. Miss one, and the whole thing still went. Command, she said. What's the status of the spillway? A weary-sounding engineer answered. Initial blast took out a section of the west walkway and compromised. One of the sluice gates. The west face is holding, but she's in bad shape. Any sustained shock will worsen the cracks. We're trying to bleed water through the east side to reduce pressure. But you're losing time, Melissa finished for him. Exactly. The tower gave her clearance. She throttled up, feeling the A-10's engines surge beneath her. The Hog wasn't fast compared to fighters, but it was built for what she needed. Stability, low-altitude maneuvering, and the ability to hit with a surgeon's precision. As the wheels lifted from the tarmac, she banked hard toward the Snake River Canyon. The sun was climbing higher, throwing long shadows across the ridges. Somewhere ahead, the dam loomed like a giant in the mist, wounded but still standing. Holt's voice returned in her ear, calmer now, but still tight. Kane, I'm moving my last team out of the lower sector. If you're going to do this, you've got maybe 2 passes before I call total evac. Understood, she said. And Kane, Yeah? A pause. Make him count. The wind buffeted her canopy as she dropped lower, following the canyon's winding spine. Trees blurred past beneath her wings. Somewhere far below, she could see flashes of movement, tiny figures hauling equipment, guiding civilians up steep service roads. She knew most of those people wouldn't survive if the dam went. And she knew that in less than 25 minutes, the choice might no longer be hers to make. Valkyrie 1, the controller said, you're entering strike zone range. Recommend you confirm visual before engaging. Smoke was starting to show on the horizon, a dirty gray smear that rose from the dam's western spillway. She adjusted her visor and pushed lower, cutting into the turbulence. The cum line clicked, and Holt's voice was there again, half drowned in the roar of water. You see it yet? Not yet, Melissa replied, coming in low to avoid. Radar scatter from the canyon walls. Keep your men clear of the west face. They're already moving, Holt said. Good hunting. She smiled faintly at the phrase. Hunting was exactly what this was, except the prey wasn't a person, but a chain reaction of explosives hidden in one of the most fragile places imaginable. The dam finally came into view, a massive wall of gray concrete spanning the river, with water boiling white at its base. Sections of the west side were blackened from the earlier blast. Cracks spidered out from the impact zone like frozen lightning. Even from this distance, she could tell the structure was groaning under the strain. Every second was another grain of sand slipping through the hourglass. Command, she said. I have visual. Targets are going to be tough. Smoke cover is thick on the west quadrant. I'll need spotter confirmation on deck positions once I make my first pass. Copy, Valkyrie 1, the controller replied. Spotters standing by. Melissa rolled the A-10 slightly, lining herself with the first approach corridor. Hogg's engines thundered in the canyon, echoing off the rock like distant artillery. Below, she could see Holt SEALs pulling the last evacuees up a steep access ramp. They moved fast, but she knew the truth. Every person there was gambling on her next few passes. The thought didn't slow her. It sharpened her. She keyed her mic one last time before the run. Valkyrie 1 commencing strike approach. Let's make too late mean something else. The Snake River Canyon narrowed like a tightening noose. From her cockpit, Captain Melissa Kane could see the walls drawing in, jagged rock pressing close enough that even a few feet of drift could tear a wing clean off. The A-10 wasn't built for beauty, but it was built to endure abuse still. Concrete and steel didn't forgive mistakes. She pushed the throttle slightly forward, feeling the Hogg's engines growl as the nose dipped lower. Below, the river churned, a long silver ribbon threading through stone. Somewhere ahead, behind the haze and turbulence, the dam waited, wounded, armed, and ready to die. Valkyrie 1, the controller's voice crackled in her headset. Cross winds are gusting to 20 knots at the lower approach. You'll feel it hard once you clear the bend. Copy, she said, already bracing her hands against the stick. The first downdraft hit without warning, a sudden gut punch that dropped her 3 feet in an instant. The seat harness bit into her shoulders. She corrected with a sharp pull, leveling out just before the left wingtip skimmed too close to the canyon wall. Her HUD lit with ghostly green targeting data, partial outlines of the dam overlaid with red markers for each detonator. The problem was obvious. The approach angles were brutal. The detonators weren't just hidden. They were tucked in places that forced her into dangerous yaw or roll to get a shot. And at low altitude, one bad correction meant steel into stone. Spotter chatter filled the channel. Valkyrie 1, be advised, Detonator 1 is partially visible near West Spillway Seam. Minimal smoke cover. Recommend you engage that first. Melissa squinted through the haze ahead. The dam's scarred concrete began to emerge, massive, immovable, and yet somehow fragile now. Black smoke curled from the spillway, twisting in the crosswinds. She pictured the engineer's warnings again. One stray round could finish the job the bombers started. Holt's voice cut in. "Kane, my last team's clearing out of the lower access. You've got a green light, but only on the coordinates we give. No free shooting." "Understood," she said. "I'll thread the needle." The targeting reticle slid into place over the first red marker. She eased the stick left, compensating for wind drift. Her breathing slowed, her pulse steady. The rest of the world, the chatter, the roar of engines, the dam looming larger, all faded. The GAU-8's readiness light went green. "Valkyrie 1, you're hot on target," the controller said. "Clear to fire." She didn't rush. At this range, a second of hesitation was better than a second of regret. She let the hog drift another few meters, aligning perfectly. The red marker pulsed once, twice. She squeezed the trigger. The cannon's roar tore through the canyon like a god's snarl. 30-millimeter shells, slamming into the metal housing around the detonator. The impact threw sparks and fragments. Outward, she released after a short burst, the recoil rippling through her arms. Spotter confirmation came almost instantly. Direct hit. Detonator 1 neutralized. No secondary. Melissa banked sharply to avoid the rising smoke plume, the left wingtip clearing the canyon wall by maybe 10 feet. She felt the turbulence. Try to roll her. She countered hard, jaw clenched. "Nice work," Holt said. 4 left. Detonator 2 is trickier. East side, under walkway debris. You'll need a sharper bank. Melissa grimaced. A sharper bank meant more G-force and less margin for error. But hesitation wasn't an option. She circled wide, bringing the hog around for the east face. This side was worse. Stronger gusts, less visibility, and the angle meant her shots could ricochet into the dam face if she wasn't precise. As she approached, the turbulence doubled, hammering her like invisible fists. The A-10 groaned, but held steady. She lined the reticle over the next marker, half hidden beneath twisted steel and dangling cables. One burst. Shells chewed through the debris, stripping it away until the detonator was exposed. A small, ugly box with wires snaking out like veins. She fired again, shattering it. Spotters called confirmation. 2 down. Her fuel readout caught her eye. Still in safe range, but each pass burned precious minutes, and minutes were the one thing they didn't have. The third target was on the underside of a maintenance platform, the worst possible placement. To hit it, she'd have to invert the hog slightly and fire upward at an angle. A dangerous move at low altitude. "Command," she said. "Confirm. No ground personnel in the east access tunnel?" Holt replied immediately. "Clear. Take the shot." She flipped the hog into a shallow inversion, stomach pressing against the harness as gravity shifted. The world looked wrong. Sky below, river above, but the reticle held steady. She squeezed the trigger. The burst hit dead on, and the detonator vaporized in a puff of black smoke. She rolled upright, the G forces pulling at her ribs, and leveled out just before the next canyon bend. 3 down. 2 to go. The fourth was buried deeper in the west face, close to a stress fracture. Here, precision wasn't just important. It was life or death for the dam. She adjusted the weapon system to single-fire mode, each round deliberate. "Valkyrie 1, the controller said. "Be advised, fracture expansion detected near target 4's position. Recommend minimal kinetic impact." Melissa's lips tightened. Acknowledged. Switching to precision burst. She approached. Slower this time, letting the hog's stability do the work. She tapped the trigger, sending just 3 rounds. The first 2 struck concrete near the device. The third clipped the detonator itself. A small spray of sparks, then nothing. No chain reaction. Target 4 neutralized, the spotter confirmed, relief in his voice. Melissa exhaled once, deeply. One left. But the fifth, the final, was the worst of them all. It was tucked into a narrow gap between rebar and the dam's main sluice mechanism. Any stray shot here wouldn't just crack concrete. It could jam the gates entirely, sending pressure sky high. Holt came back on combs. That one's your make or break. If you miss, we can't clear the area fast enough. Melissa adjusted her heading. The smoke was thicker now, swirling unpredictably with the wind. The sunlight was low in the canyon, throwing blinding glares off the water. Everything about this approach screamed, "Don't do it." She steadied her breathing. Hands locked on knee. Stick. The reticle slid over the marker. The wind gusted hard. The hog drifted inches off course. She corrected, feeling the strain in her arms. The red pulsing dot in her HUD aligned once more. She squeezed the trigger. The radio crackled with the voice of Major Carter from Ground Command. "Falcon 2, you've got no more than 5 minutes before the charges go." The urgency in his tone was razor-sharp, and Rachel's grip tightened around the control. Stick. Below her, the Colorado River shimmered in the fading daylight, but the dam's concrete structure looked ghostly pale against the canyon walls. She could almost see the faint flicker of a timed detonator light in her mind's eye. The SEAL team leader's last transmission still echoed in her headset. Negative on disarm. It sealed up steel plating. "We can't reach the core charges." That left her A-10 and a whole lot of steel and explosives. She leveled out at low altitude, feeling the vibration of the twin turbofans through. Her seat, the GAU-8 Avenger cannon, could shred an armored vehicle in seconds, but here, precision was everything. The charges were rumored to be buried inside structural recesses, shielded from a direct hit. She needed a miracle shot, something that could create controlled destruction to prevent uncontrolled devastation. Her mind raced. Training scenarios had prepared her for tank columns, anti-aircraft batteries, even fast-moving convoys. But this? Shooting into a dam without compromising its core integrity? That was improvisation on a knife's edge. She clicked the mic. "Command, I've got an idea. But you're not going to like it." Major Carter didn't waste time. "If it saves the dam, I'll like it just fine." Her plan was risky, using short bursts from the Avenger to chip away at the access panels shielding the explosives, allowing the SEALs to reach them in time. But she'd have to fly dangerously low through a narrow canyon corridor. Any miscalculation could slam her into rock or spray debris that might detonate the charges prematurely. She banked left, the A-10 groaning under the stress. The canyon. Walls rose up on both sides, dark and jagged. Rachel's eyes darted between the altimeter and the targeting reticle, her breath steady but deep. Her father's voice came to her in memory, a retired crop duster who taught her to fly when she was just 12. "When it gets tight, Ratch, trust your instincts. The stick is part of you. You don't think you feel." The first pass was reconnaissance. She skimmed barely above the river, her wake churning the surface into foamy ripples. Ahead, she caught the faint glint of metal plating set into the dam's maintenance ledge. That had to be it. "Falcon 2, we see your run." Carter's voice came through. "Targets marked on thermal standby for coordinates." The coordinates appeared. On her HUD, glowing symbols overlaying the real-world view. 3 shielded sections, evenly spaced along the dam's midsection. Her stomach tightened. There would be no time to make 3 separate runs before detonation. 1 pass, 3 targets. Her thumb hovered over the trigger. She lined up the first panel, exhaled, and squeezed. The Avenger's roar filled the canyon. the recoil thudding through her bones. Armor-piercing rounds struck, and the panel shuddered, pieces breaking loose into the river below. She rolled slightly, adjusting for the second target. A burst of fire tore into it, sending sparks arcing out like fireworks. Her wingtip missed the rock wall by no more than a dozen feet. She barely had seconds for the third adjusting her angle, compensating for the dam's curve. The rounds tore into the last panel, scattering fragments into the air. One chunk the size of a car smashed into the canyon wall, exploding into dust. She yanked back on the stick, engines howling as she clawed upward toward open sky. The G-forces pinned her to the seat, but she didn't let up until she cleared the ridge. Down below, the SEALs scrambled into the openings she'd created. From her vantage, she could see their figures tiny against the dam rushing in with toolkits and bomb disposal gear. "Falcon 2, you've opened the door. We're moving," came the SEAL leader's voice. She circled high, buying them what little time she could. End movement caught her eye. Upstream, a fast-moving wake in the water. Her eyes narrowed. It wasn't natural. It was coming from a boat, sleek and low profile, painted to blend with the river's shadows. Whoever was behind this operation wasn't finished yet. She keyed the mic. "Command, I've got possible hostile movement upstream. Advise." Carter's pause was short, but telling. "Intercept if possible. SEALs will handle the charges." Her fuel reserves were dipping lower than she liked, but this was no time for caution. She dropped altitude again, keeping the sun behind her to mask her approach. As she closed in, she could make out 3 figures aboard the boat 2 manning what looked like a heavy machine gun mounted on the bow. They'd spotted her. Tracer rounds cut through the air, glowing arcs in the dusk. She jinked left, letting the rounds pass harmlessly into open water. Then she lined up her shot, not the cannon, but her Hydra 70 rockets. A quick squeeze, and a ripple of launches streaked toward the boat. The first rocket hit just short, exploding. In a spray of water, it drenched the gunner. The second struck dead on, the blast tossing the boat sideways. When the spray cleared, only debris remained, swirling downstream. "Threat neutralized," she reported, her voice calm though her heart was hammering. Minutes later, the SEAL leader's voice came over the net. "Charges are disarmed. Repeat, charges are disarmed. Dam is secure." Rachel let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The sky over the canyon was turning orange and gold now, the danger fading with the light. Still, she couldn't shake the thought someone had known exactly how to cripple the dam and had been willing to die trying. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The A-10 Thunderbolt II shuddered under her hands as Captain Emily Raines pulled hard on the stick. The aircraft banking left into a steep climb. Rain hammered the canopy, streaking sideways, blurring the mountain ridges below. The dam loomed. In her mind's eye, still miles away, but she could almost hear the groan of stressed concrete and the roar of water waiting to break free. Her radio crackled. "Raines, you've got no window for extraction. Repeat, no extraction. Storm's closing fast." It was the air operations controller, his voice flat with urgency. "Copy," Emily said, eyes locked on the horizon. "But I'm not here for extraction. I'm here for the dam." She heard someone mutter on the open channel. She's crazy. Maybe she was. But Emily had done the math. If the dam gave way, the valley below, home to 40,000 people, would be swallowed in a wall of water before nightfall. She didn't care if her odds were 1 in 100. She'd take them. Below, the SEAL team was pinned down along the northern spillway, their voices sharp in her headset. "We're seeing increased flow from the auxiliary outlet. Repeat. Water's blasting through the emergency gates. Looks deliberate. Deliberate." The word lit a fire in her chest. This wasn't just nature's wrath, it was sabotage. Emily throttled up. The A-10's twin General Electric turbofans roared, propelling her through turbulence that felt like a living thing trying to swat her from the sky. Lightning flashed to her right, illuminating the jagged teeth of the canyon. She angled toward the storm's heart. On the ground, Lieutenant Grant Maddox, leader of the SEAL unit, crouched behind a concrete barrier. He watched the shadow of the warthog slash briefly across the churning clouds. "Rains is coming in hot," he told his second-in-command. The other man grimaced. "If she's coming in here, she's either suicidal or she's got a plan." Maddox didn't know which one scared him more. Emily dropped altitude, skimming the canyon wall at less than 300 feet. She was flying so low she could see individual trees bend under the wind's assault. The dam's massive curve emerged through the rain-dark concrete slick with runoff. Water boiling at the spillway base. And there on the left service road, several flatbed trucks parked side by side, their loads covered by tarps. She didn't need to guess what was underneath. "Control, this is Rains. Confirm ordnance authorization for ground assets at Grid 35 Alpha." Silence, then a clipped reply, "You are cleared hot. Make it count." Emily's hands moved. On instinct arming the GAU-8 Avenger cannon that gave the A-10 its growl of death. She lined up the first truck in her HUD. The reticle settled, and she squeezed the trigger. The sound was more felt than heard. A chainsaw roar, amplified to apocalyptic levels. Armor-piercing rounds tore through the first tarp, igniting. Whatever explosives were hidden beneath. A thunderclap of fire rose up, orange against the storm's gray. The SEALs cheered through the comms, their voices momentarily lifted from the grim tension. "One down, 2 to go," Maddox barked. Emily swung wide for another pass, but the wind slammed her sideways, shoving the A-10 toward the dam face. Warning alarms blared. She fought the stick with both hands, knuckles white. The ground swelled up in her vision before she wrestled the plane back into line. "Control, be advised gusts are hitting 60 knots down here," she gritted. "Rains? Abort if you have to." "Negative," she cut him off. "We don't get another shot." The second pass was tighter, lower. She dropped flares preemptively, no telling if saboteurs had manpads on those trucks. The second target erupted under her cannon's spitfire, sending debris tumbling down the service road. The third truck started moving. Someone had climbed into the cab and was trying to escape. "Not today," Emily murmured. She climbed briefly, rolled, and dove closing distance faster than the truck could turn. Her cannon chewed it apart, scattering molten fragments across wet asphalt. Then she pulled up hard, engines groaning under the strain. Maddox's voice came through, urgent again. "Rains, we've got structural breaches on the north spillway. Can you get a visual?" Emily banked over the dam, scanning through sheets of rain. And there was a jagged crack racing across the spillway face like a lightning bolt frozen in concrete. Water poured through it in a frothing torrent. She keyed the mic. "It's worse than you think. That section's not holding another hour." "Then we need to get demolition in there to relieve pressure," Maddox said. "Negative," Emily replied. "You've got hostiles still in the lower pump rooms." The storm deepened, rain slashing sideways. Lightning struck the ridge barely half a mile away. Emily could feel the urgency coiling in her gut. She had two choices: keep circling and provide air cover or land nearby and go in with the SEALs. Protocol said stay airborne. Her instincts said otherwise. She made her choice. "Control, patch me to Maddox direct." A moment later, "You're on with SEAL 1. Maddox, I'm setting down on the west service pad. You'll have close air support. Again when we clear the pump rooms." "You're landing an A-10 in this?" he said incredulously. "Not my first bad weather landing," Emily said. "Just keep the welcome party alive until I get there." As she descended, she could see muzzle flashes from the pump house windows, saboteurs defending whatever they'd set in motion. Her landing was rough, tires biting hard into slick pavement, the A-10 skidding before she brought it under control. Emily popped the canopy and was hit by the storm's roar. Cold rain soaked her flight suit instantly. She grabbed her sidearm and a short carbine from the cockpit storage, then sprinted toward the SEALs, who were already moving to meet her. Maddox gave her a quick nod. "You're insane, Rains." She grinned through the rain. "You're welcome." He pointed toward the pump rooms. "We clear that, we might still save the dam." The team moved out, boots pounding on slick concrete, water lapping at their ankles from overflow. Thunder cracked overhead. Somewhere deep inside the dam's guts, Emily knew, was the last card they could play, and if they didn't reach it in time, 40,000 lives would be swept away. And this storm wasn't slowing for anyone. The moment the words, "You're cleared hot," echoed through her headset, Captain Alana Marlowe felt the weight of the mission settle on her shoulders like a physical force. This wasn't training. This wasn't a simulation. If she failed, an entire valley and thousands of people would be gone in minutes. Below her, the Black River Dam was a chaos of water and movement. The overflow channels had already collapsed into the torrent, churning brown with mud and debris. Elena's HUD flickered with rapidly updating data. Wind shear warnings, incoming projectile threats, and a countdown clock from the SEAL team on the ground. That clock read 1:47. She didn't think about it. Thinking was a luxury. This was muscle memory now. Her A-10 Thunderbolt II call sign Valkyrie 6 angled into a shallow dive. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon under her nose loomed in her mind like a dragon's maw, each round the size of a Coke bottle, capable of tearing through tanks. But tonight, its job wasn't to fight armor. It was to blast apart the logjam and explosives rigged in the overflow. The SEALs' voices crackled in. "Charges confirmed. The dam's south wall is buckling. We can't get to the fuse." Elena swallowed hard. "Copy that. Eyes on." She was coming in low now, so low she could see the spray from the water, hitting the underside of her wings. The smell of damp concrete and cordite filled her cockpit. Even with the canopy sealed, she felt the vibration of the river's roar through the fuselage. Her targeting reticle danced over the mass of debris jammed against the dam's south wall. Wood, steel beams, crates, and somewhere inside, enough explosives to turn the entire structure into a crater. 30 seconds, her co-pilot's voice reminded her, though he knew she didn't need it. She squeezed the trigger. The GAU-8 repped with a sound like tearing the sky in half-B RRT. The recoil rumbling up through her seat, the tracers glowing red in the darkness as they arced into the target. The first burst sent debris flying, but the water didn't slow. She adjusted, rolled slightly to the left, lined up again. BRRT. The second burst chewed through the pile, exposing flashes of dull metal underneath. That's when she saw them cylinders wired together. The explosives. Confirmed visual, she called. Going for the trigger rig. Her third pass was tighter, faster, and much lower than protocol allowed. The dam's floodlights painted the cockpit in a harsh yellow glare as she skimmed the water surface. She fired a short, surgical burst. The rounds punched into the detonator housing, shredding the control unit. Sparks shot out, then vanished into the spray. The comms went quiet. Elena, her co-pilot, started. Then the water changed. The logjam shuddered as the explosives, now inert, were pushed loose by the relentless current. A massive section broke free, crashing into the torrent below, sending up plumes of spray that drenched the catwalks where the seals clung to their gear. She pulled up hard, banking away from the dam just as a spray of small arms fire stitched the night behind her. Whoever had planted the charges wasn't done yet. Contact, West Ridge. Her co-pilot was already flipping weapon systems. Elena didn't even need to think. She rolled the A-10 into a tight arc, wings nearly clipping the tops of the pines along the ridgeline. Muzzle flashes winked like fireflies among the trees. She let the Avenger speak again. BRRRT. The gunfire from the ridge stopped instantly. Smoke curled upward through the trees. Ground threats neutralized, she said, more to herself than to anyone listening. The SEAL team's leader came over the combs, breathless but steady. Overflow is clear. South wall holding. You just bought us a dam, Valkyrie 6. Her chest ached with the sudden release of tension. But there was no time for relief. The water was still dangerously high, and the structure had taken a beating. If the storm upstream didn't ease, this reprieve might last only hours. She circled back, watching as tiny figures the SEALs scrambled along the dam's catwalks, setting emergency barriers and calling in engineers. The chopper evac would be there in minutes. Think that's it? Her co-pilot asked. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes kept scanning the valley, the ridges, the shadows. This felt too surgical, too deliberate. Whoever had planned this had chosen the moment perfectly stormed at its peak. Combs partially jammed, and the SEALs occupied on the far side of the river. It wasn't just sabotage. It was a message. Finally, she said, "No, this isn't over." The valley below was quiet again, eerily so, as though it were holding its breath. The dam still groaned under the pressure, but the catastrophic failure had been avoided. For now, her hands relaxed on the stick for the first time in nearly 2 hours. She banked the A-10 north, lining up for another low sweep over the site, not ready to leave just yet. The radio popped again this time, a different voice. One she didn't recognize. Valkyrie 6, stand by for new orders. Priority red. She exchanged a glance with her co-pilot. Red meant immediate, national-level threat. And as the storm, clouds split briefly, moonlight glinting off the water, Elena realized something. Stopping the dam from bursting might have just been the first step in someone's plan. The first thing Morgan felt when she yanked the A-10's stick hard left was her stomach lurching against the harness. The HUD blurred for half a second as she pushed the Warthog into a tight bank, almost skimming the ridgeline. She could see the dam now, not in full, but the jagged lip of the spillway and the frothing white water beneath it, and smoke. Thick black, boiling smoke. She glanced at the clock on her panel. 2:43. Less than 17 minutes until the structural engineers. Prediction for failure. That was assuming no more charges went off. She knew the enemy had more. Her radio crackled with the voice of SEAL Commander Rourke, still in the kill zone. "Viper, this is Hammer 6. They're lighting the south bank. My men can't hold them much longer." A deafening boom cut him off. Through the haze, Morgan caught sight of orange plumes billowing from the base of the south wall. Her heart rate spiked. If that wall gave way, the entire dam would fold like paper. She keyed her mic. "Hammer 6, hold on. I'm coming in hot." She shoved the throttles forward. The twin General Electric TF-34 engines screamed, their whine harmonizing with the rattle of her weapons bay cycling into position. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but adrenaline. She wasn't just flying now. She was hunting. At 1,500 feet AGL, she rolled the A-10 inverted, then snapped into a near vertical dive. The G-force pressed her into her seat, her vision narrowing. Into a tunnel framed by black smoke. The dam loomed closer, its surface flashing with muzzle bursts from dozens of small arms below. The A-10's GAU-8 Avenger cannon spun up with its distinct, terrifying purr, a predator's growl before the kill. She squeezed the trigger. The sound was nothing like the movies. It wasn't a single BRRT, but a monstrous tearing roar. 70 rounds per second ripping into the hillside, where enemy fighters swarmed with RPGs. Dirt and debris erupted in geysers. A fuel cache went up, sending a mushroom of flame skyward. Her eyes scanned for the larger threat, the demolition crews. Infrared popped their heat signatures against the chaos. 2 figures crouched along the catwalk on the southern pylon, planting shaped charges directly against the concrete. Morgan cursed under her breath. Not today. She banked again, bringing the nose down, but at this angle, her cannon risked hitting the dam itself. She'd have to switch to precision. Her thumb flicked to the AGM-65 Maverick missile controls. The seeker head locked with a high-pitched tone, crosshairs settling right on the 2 saboteurs. Fox 2, she called, loosing the missile. It streaked away in a trail of smoke, slamming into the catwalk in a blinding explosion. The saboteurs vanished in the blast. But the radio erupted again. Viper, this is Hammer 6. North Bank, they're trying again. You've got armor moving. In. She pulled back on the stick, climbing hard. Sure enough, the north approach road shimmered with heat signatures, a pair of technicals, and something heavier. She magnified the feed, an old T-72 tank lumbering toward the base. A direct tank shell into the weakened north wall could finish what the explosive started. Morgan checked her stores. 2 Mavericks left, but no time for finesse. She locked on the tank. The missile screamed away, striking dead center. The turret erupted like a volcano, spinning off into the river below. She didn't have time to breathe before she noticed a second threat. A drone swarm, small quadcopters, but fast, arcing toward the dam. She realized too late they were carrying explosives. The seals on the ground opened up with small arms, but too many slipped through. Her jaw clenched. She pitched the nose down, firing short bursts from the GAU-8, shredding several drones mid-air. One detonated only 80 feet from her cockpit, rattling the hog like a tin can in a hailstorm. Viper, this is Hammer 6, Rourke's voice came. Again strained, we've got wounded. If you've got anything left, now's the time. Her fuel gauge screamed a warning. She'd burned through her reserve with all the hard maneuvering. She had maybe 5 minutes of aggressive flight left before she'd have to limp to a refuel. She made her choice. Rolling back into the smoke, she unleashed the last of her 30mm rounds in a continuous stream, scouring the ridgelines and clearing the pressure on Rourke's team. From her cockpit, she caught flashes of them moving the wounded toward the spillway's access tunnel. But the structural monitor feed, blinking in the corner of her HUD, told the truth. Critical strain. Parts of the dam's outer wall were already beginning to crack. She wasn't going to stop this just by killing the enemy. The real fight was about to be something else entirely. As she pulled out of her run, the sky above the dam seemed to flash white. For a split second, she thought it was lightning. Then, the shockwave hit. A massive secondary charge had gone off, deep inside the dam's maintenance level. The radio went dead. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew what that meant. Either the blast severed the comm system entirely, or everyone inside was gone. For the first time in years, she felt cold sweat roll down the back of her neck mid-flight. The hog's engines roared, but she could barely hear them over the pounding of her heart. If the dam went now, the valley below, the homes, the towns, the people would be gone in less than 20 minutes. She wasn't flying for the mission anymore. She was flying for all of them. The shockwave from the secondary blast still echoed faintly in Captain Morgan Viper's ears as she banked hard away from the dam. Her HUD flickered with warning messages. Comms offline, structural integrity critically compromised, and her fuel dangerously low. Through the thick smoke and swirling rain, the dam looked fragile, a wounded giant barely holding its breath. Below, the valley sprawled out like a sleeping beast, towns, farms, roads, all vulnerable to one catastrophic failure. Morgan's hands tightened on the controls, knuckles white. This was supposed to be a mission for precision strikes and extraction. Instead, it had become a desperate gamble against time and destruction. Back at the control center, engineers scrambled frantically. Emergency crews moved into position, barricading roads and activating floodgates, but the data was grim. The dam's core support was fractured beyond repair. Every passing second increased the risk of a total collapse. Yet in the midst of the chaos, a new beacon of hope emerged. The SEAL team, led by Lieutenant Rourke, had managed to clear the lower tunnels and were installing emergency shoring beams to stabilize the structure internally. Morgan keyed her radio, voice raw but resolute. Rourke, status report. A crackling reply came back, breathless. Shoring's in place, but it's makeshift. We need more time and cover. On my way, Morgan said, already diving toward the dam again. As she descended through the smoky sky, lightning illuminated the scene below. The SEALs were tiny figures in a war zone, dodging debris, rushing past flooding corridors, fighting exhaustion, and the relentless threat of water bursting through any minute. Morgan's A-10 growled overhead, its presence a shield against the remaining hostiles still trying to finish their grim work. The radio squawked with reports of approaching hostile reinforcements. Morgan knew she had minutes, maybe less, before they arrived. She lined up for another strafing run, cannon blazing, sweeping the canyon walls and roadways clear for the SEALs to work. Every burst of gunfire shredded another threat. Every missile strike a promise that the valley might still be safe. But the real test came when the dam gave a deep, ominous groan, a sound like thunder trapped in concrete. The structure shifted, tiny fissures racing along its face. Morgan's HUD flashed red. Structural collapse imminent. Time snapped into razor focus. The SEALs needed evacuation immediately, but the shuttle landing zones were compromised. The only exit was a narrow service road on the opposite side. She contacted command. Coordinate an extraction route on the east side. I'll provide cover. Then, looking below, she saw movement, civilians, families, panicked and scrambling along flooded roads toward higher ground. Illuminated by emergency vehicle lights and the storm's fading glow, her throat tightened. The mission wasn't just about the dam anymore. It was about saving lives. She dove again, flying low to guide convoys to safety with precision passes that cut through storm and enemy fire alike. Her calls on the radio were calm but urgent, directing rescue teams and warning of flash floods. One final pass over the dam's crest revealed the heart of the damage, a gaping hole near the main spillway where the second blast had torn through. The water was flooding in fast, the dam's integrity at a breaking point. Morgan knew her. Fuel was critical. She had minutes to refuel or risk losing power mid-air. But she stayed, circling low, buying time for the engineers and SEALs. Then, just as hope seemed fragile as the dam itself, a crackling transmission came through from the SEAL commander. Captain Viper, the shoring is holding. We've stabilized the core temporarily. The dam will hold for now. Relief washed over her like a cool wave, mingled with exhaustion. She keyed her mic, voice hoarse. Copy that, Rourke. Returning to base for fuel. Keep those people moving. As the A-10 lifted from the canyon, Morgan stole one last glance back. The dam was scarred, but standing. The river churned fiercely, but the floodwaters hadn't broken through. In the sky above, the storm clouds began to part, the first stars piercing the dark veil. She thought about the SEALs risking everything inside that concrete giant, the civilians racing to safety, and the team on the ground who never gave up. And she knew that tonight, her A-10 hadn't just saved a dam. It had saved a community, a future. Hours later, at base, Morgan removed her helmet. Sweat and rain streaked across her face. The weight of the mission lifted, replaced by a quiet pride. She was a pilot, a warrior, but above all, a guardian. She glanced at the news feed. On her tablet, headlines ran, "Dam disaster averted. Heroic effort saves thousands." But for her, the real story was in the faces of the people she'd helped save. And she was ready to do it all again. Because sometimes, when the world says it's already too late, heroes write their own ending.